To use the PHP mail function, we first have to set the SMTP value in the php.ini file to the value of the SMTP server we're going to use. We do this with the PHP function ini_set, with the parameter SMTP in uppercase, double quotes, and the second parameter being the value of the server we've just saved, that is your ISP's SMTP server. So we set the variable to the value of your server and then use iniset. And iniset temporarily sets the value of the SMTP server to the value we want. We then can use it in the mail function, which comprises of the keyword mail, which is the function, and 4 parameters. The email address that we're sending to, the subject of the email, the bulk of the email, the message or the contents, and this fourth one, headers. And we'll deal with what has to be in the headers variable shortly. Most importantly, these 2 characters here, which say escape R and escape N, are the return character and the new line character. Technically, ASCII character 13 and ASCII character 10. Correctly formatting the headers component will determine whether or not your email gets delivered, and indeed the likelihood of it being rejected as spam. Let's now look at an example. In a fresh code pane, load the snippet examplets email PHP mail and save it as email_test.php in the demo folder. This file starts off by setting some parameters. You can probably guess that the variable sendWasClicked is the field that's received from the form to tell us when to process the form. The SMTP server is the value that you've just collected from your email client, and it's not the same as this. You will have to change that to the value you've just put in. The default from email is simply the email address that will appear as the sender or the originator of the email. This clearly is a dummy email address, which is called spoofing, which is highly frowned upon in the internet community. So in real life, you would make sure that this is a verifiable email address. You may have noticed when I opened up my Thunderbird account, I had an account here for test@training.tmit.net. So I've set the to email to that account. You should change that value to an email address where you can be sure that you'll actually get the email. The other 2 parts of this script are a form, which has several fields, the to mail field, the from mail field, the subject of the email and the message, and a submit button. And you're familiar with all of that. Put into the to mail field is the default value that we set earlier, and the default value of the from mail field. The other part of this form processes the form. It collects all the post data from the form, to mail, from mail, subject and message, and formats this headers component for the 4th argument of the mail function. Remember, we have to use the ini_set function to set temporarily the SMTP parameter to the value of our server, which we collected before. Then we use the mail function to simply send the email and respond whether the mail was sent or whether it failed. Let's now go to our demo folder and find this file, click on it to open up the email form. Type in a subject that you'll immediately recognize when you receive the email and click send. And I've done this to demonstrate that the from email address was unrootable and caused the mail to fail. So the server that I'm using, because there was nothing in the PHP code to check that, but the server I'm using refuses to accept spoofing email addresses, which is a good thing. Let's go back and change the email address to something I know to be a legitimate server. Now, it doesn't have to be a legitimate email address. It just has to be a legitimate server where the SMTP server can validate that this actually exists. So I've changed it to noreply@jocasta.com, and I'll save that. We'll run the file again, this time from noreply@jocasta.com, putting in test77 again, and send. This time it says mail sent, and I can go and look at my email account. Here it is, test@training.tmit.net, and get the mail. It's downloaded a mail, and its content is simply test77. There's the mail downloaded. So this script has indeed sent the mail with the correct subject and the correct content to the correct address.